Peace, everyone. Um, I want to make sure that everyone can hear me. So, peace, everyone. Okay, so I think I can be heard now. I'm not sure if y'all were able to hear the video, but I think you can hear me now. I'm not really sure what was going on there, but peace to everyone. Thank you for coming through. I see that I have some people here in the chat, and thank you for um, coming to another live here at MaatSpeaks. So, again, if you are new or you need a refresher reminder here at MaatSpeaks, where I aim to demonstrate how to maintain, uphold, and build a code and culture through the principles of Ma'at. And if you need a reminder of those principles, those principles are balance, harmony, truth, order, justice, reciprocity, and righteousness. We begin by applying these principles to ourselves, then we extend these principles to our families and ultimately our communities. Now, as you enter, I always say and tell my family here that you prepare to open your minds. We have been given a filter that most of us have been accustomed to. So, if you are familiar with Dr. Ray Hagins, he often begins his conversations with holding up a circle and some things that, and he talks about things that are outside our realm of awareness and how we need to reflect on that circle. So don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Some will listen, some will jump to defend only what they know, and forget that there is so much that we do not know. So, just like we all have studied in our own expertise, I ask that you also study and research, and so that we can truly have these conversations and understand from one another. So, today we have a special topic. As some of you know, we have had a few conversations surrounding restoring holistic health in our communities and how we can bring harmony and balance to ourselves, our families, and communities through holistic health and nutrition. But today we're going to have a different approach. It's going to be a special discussion because a lot of our decisions or inability to make the right decisions are based on something that we often dismiss, and that is energy, frequency, and vibrations. So before I go on, I want to welcome, she is no longer a stranger to the stage. Welcome again, Dr. Tammy Matthews.
Thank you. Thank you, Maya. I'm grateful for being invited again. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for coming again, and a thank you for joining me with this in this conversation. And so, before we begin, I want to also make sure that you remember that you can donate to the channel in a few ways. You can buy me a cup of tea at buymeacoffee.com. You can also donate to the Cash App, Ma'at Speaks, Venmo, also Ma'at Speaks, and then the PayPal, which is Gen Health Revolution. That is also my website, generationalhealthrevolution.com, which is also my Instagram as well. Okay, so we are going to jump into it. And also, don't forget that you can follow Dr. Tammy Matthews on Instagram as well at Restored by Tammy. And she also has a website as well. And you can go to her website, restoredbytammy.com. Anything that you want to add? Anything coming up?
Well, we do have the 1 meal a day challenge that we're getting ready to get started with May 1st. So, for those who were interested in learning a little bit more about intermittent fasting and wanting to be able to burn the excess waste, the fat, the belly fat specifically, they can, contact me. I'm also on Facebook. So, feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you so much. So, shout out to the people in the chat. TWP Popcorn, I saw that you were the first to comment here, and you said our program is so off whack. Let's sit in and talk. Yes, please join the conversation. Danique, I know you, brother, you talk about frequency often, so please join in the conversation as well. Thank you, Just Do It, for always being here and helping me. Thank you, love. And so we're going to jump into the conversation.
Mhm.
And anybody who wants to, give some tidbits in the chat, do that as well. So we're going to start off um, today. So I did a live about 3 months ago, and we were discussing our health and how what we consume is tied to the way we are um, what we consume is tied to how we are being advertised. And
Mhm.
so I talked about propaganda. And so a lot of times I often get perplexed because I can read a book or look at a commercial or watch a show, movie or whatever. And then someone else can watch those same things, but they get something differently, or they don't know that they're being programmed, or it's kind of a weird feeling because you're just like, I read the same book, why aren't you getting the same thing that I got from
Mhm.
that book?
Mhm.
And so a lot of times especially like around election time, or these different different downloads that we get. uh, so was speaking with a friend recently, and we were actually talking about this, and we were talking about how it seems that people are getting certain downloads at certain times. So case in point, the recent Will, Jada, and Chris Rock debacle, right? Like everybody was talking about that. And then it's like, I'm pretty sure everyone can think of something that has happened that is like everyone's talking about it at one time.
Mhm.
Everybody's tapping into that same frequency.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned on the live, I mentioned the Popeyes chicken sandwich. Like everybody was talking about the sandwich. Everybody was going and getting that sandwich. And
Mhm.
so me, on the outside, considering I don't eat that, um,
Mhm.
I was, just like, what is going on? Like, why are people constantly doing these things? So, it's one of those things, of course, it's advertisement and propaganda, but also it means that you have to be kind of that, what I would say, that vessel in a sense
Mhm.
that is able to be advertised to. So it doesn't work on me because maybe I'm not in that same frequency. But what would you say to that, Dr. Tammy? Why does that work on some people?
Yes. So the key word is awareness.
Mhm.
One of the things that I like to teach in the detox program is the law of vibration. So many people are not aware of what the law of vibration says, which postulates that everything moves, everything has energy, nothing appears as it seems. So, because of the lack of awareness, I believe that the conditioning that many of us have been brought up in, which conditioning merely means that we operate based on what our parents have told us, what our teachers have taught us, what our employers, whatever have you, have told us, what the churches have told us, and are not open to what the creator, source, whoever you believe in, is speaking to you. So we are all vibrating, but we're not all aware that we are vibrating.
Mhm.
That's why some of us will receive some downloads, and some of us, I believe, are receiving the downloads, but are not even aware that they're receiving them.
Right. Yes, the awareness. That's a huge one, because we are and we're going to get deeper into that, because not being aware is something, it happens to us on a daily basis. So
Mhm.
we're not immune to it, but it's
Mhm.
more of that awareness is kind of what helps you to understand, so that you can,
Mhm.
I guess, fight it is the best thing to say. And Peace, thank you for coming through. Hello, thank you. Um, okay, so let's continue. So, with that being said, let's talk about what actually frequency is. So, let's define frequency. Frequency is a rate in which a vibration occurs that constitutes a wave either in a material, as in sound waves, or in electromagnetic field, as in radio waves and light. So, usually measured per second. And
Mhm.
to further that, uh, we can talk about frequency as in the rate in which something occurs is repeated over a particular period of time or in a given sample. We also talk about frequency in music, and it's measured in terms. Sound is measured in terms of frequency and amplitude. Sometimes it's referred to as pitch. So I'm not going to get too deep into that, but that just is a basis of frequency.
Mhm.
So then when we talk about vibrations, which therefore vibrations and frequency are synonymous, because vibration refers to the oscillating and vibrating movement of atoms and particles caused by energy. So, frequency, on the other hand, refers to the rate at which the vibrations and oscillations occur. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza read his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and he states that energy is the very fabric of all things material and is responsive to mind. So let's talk about the mind for a moment.
Mhm.
What is the mind? What is that?
So,
Yeah,
oh,
that's a question. Like, so what is the mind?
okay. I thought you were going to put a definition up. I was like, okay, well, what's the definition for mine? So I view, I view the mind as being the the seat of the soul. And when I say that, I mean that it's not what we've been taught as far as the
Mm-hmm.
brain is concerned. We have a conscious mind, we have a subconscious mind, right? And
Mm-hmm.
80% of what we do comes from our subconscious mind. Um, so that is where I believe downloads happen and the conditioning that occurs happen, kind of like what we talked about,
Right.
um, is through the mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the book, Dr. Joe Dispenza, I like how he put that your consciousness,
Mhm.
and just like kind of what you said, that's your mind,
Mhm.
in that has effect on energy, and energy is matter, because your
Mhm.
consciousness is energy, and energy has consciousness.
Mhm.
So you are powerful enough to influence matter because, at the most elementary level, you are energy with a consciousness. So he puts it, you are mindful matter.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, if we're mindful matter, if our mind, if we go back and we talk about that, um, energy is responsive to
Mhm.
our mind, and our mind is our consciousness, and it affects matter and all
Mhm.
matter. So then, whose best interest is it, for us to possess that type of power?
Mm.
Is it in the best interest of the powers that be for us to possess and be able to influence matter? Now, so my thinking would be, if everyone was, equal, everyone was connected to nature, then that shouldn't be a problem, right? Like it
Right.
shouldn't be a problem if we influence matter, because we are kind of the co-creators of our lives, our universe, our life.
Yeah.
But because there are people who are in position who wants to control things,
Mhm.
then that's where we get into the whole idea of, now it's a problem if we have that power to influence matter. So what do you say to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that you said that well. There are the key thing is there are people who want to control, and they know that if they allow people free will or people to tap into their power and knowing who they are and the power that they have, that they will not be able to, based on their agendas, get those masses of people to do what it is that they would like for them to do, because people
Mhm,
have different motives. So, what you said, to be able to just control and our own, destinies in a sense, and that we are tapping into our powers and we're able to, I like to say, carry out our purposes and all of that, then that doesn't allow those who have other agendas,
mhm,
and not to get too much into materialism, or those that vibrate at a lower level of vibration,
mhm.
doesn't allow them to fulfill what it is that they want to do.
Right.
To get too deep into it, but yeah.
Yeah. So with that,
Mhm.
um we have I shared this actually on um I shared it on my Instagram. I'm gonna hopefully that you'll be able to hear it. So let's just look at this real quick. It's not very long. And
Okay.
it kind of talks about things that they did to start manipulating those frequencies. So let's
Mhm.
just listen to this really quickly.
Mhm.
And let's see here. Hmm. Okay.
Of the ancients, such as in the construction of the Great Pyramid, everything has a range of frequency, including every organ and cell in our bodies. Scientific research has shown that our cells resonate with and respond to different frequencies. When we are in resonance, or the act of resonating and producing positive feeling states, we are in balance. Music based on 432 hertz creates resonance within our bodies and balances the emotional and mental state. It transmits beneficial healing energy because it's a pure tone of math fundamental to nature. But you may be surprised to know that our current musical standard is a tuning of 440 hertz. So when did this concert pitch come into effect? Most music worldwide has been tuned to 440 hertz since the International Standards Organization, or the ISO, endorsed it in 1953. There is a theory that the change from 432 hertz to 440 hertz followed the recommendations of the Nazi Party spokesman Joseph Goebbels in 1939. According to this theory, there was an organized effort to change concert pitch to 440 hertz at the start of the last century to codify an old world new order of central pitch. This was set into motion in order to increase anxiety levels in individuals, causing them to think and feel in specific ways, making them a prisoner of a consciousness that breeds disharmony. It's also alleged that the Rockefeller Foundation had an interest in making sure the United States adopted the 440 hertz standard as a part of a war on consciousness, causing more emotional distress and, in turn, more physical illness and hardship.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. And so here, this is an example. Peace, E Black, thank you for coming through. This is an example of how frequencies and that manipulation. So let's talk about the frequency, because I am I'm a musician, and so that was very interesting to hear, because before you start singing, when I was in college singing choirs, you always hear that pitch. You hear that pitch before they play in orchestras. You always hear that pitch. So it was very interesting to hear that changed. And I looked at some other things about the Gregorian chants and all that different kind of stuff. I'm not going to really get into that, but as someone who is a musician, I do find that, especially with the music and the way that it is now. So let's first talk about the frequency of music and how it is currently affecting us. So what would you say is the current effects of music? Because it seems like as the years go by, music gets worse and worse. And then they're putting certain frequencies, and then we're going to talk about even frequencies that we can't even hear. So, what do you say to that about what is it doing to us? And even on a cellular level, what do you think it's doing to us?
Yes. So I actually was not aware of this switch. I wasn't aware as far as reading about it, but from a spiritual perspective or a vibrational perspective, I was aware.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't listen to a lot of music on the radio. Most of the music that I listen to is music that I actually hand select
Mm-hmm.
that I want to hear, because it does affect us on a cellular level. If you think about how certain songs will cause you to feel happy and want to dance and express yourself, you know, there are certain songs like I'm a Michael Jackson fan.
Yes.
So you turn on some Michael Jackson, I don't care where I am, I'm gonna dance, right? But then there is music that literally makes you feel like I just want to stay in and just be in the bed all day and
Mm-hmm.
think about all of the negative experiences I've had in my life, right?
Right.
And which again, we are consisted of billions of molecules. Like we have billions of cells in the body, and those frequencies impact us at that cellular level, as was stated in the video.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we may not have known this particular information, which I did do a little bit of research just to see what PubMed had to say from a clinical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Although they did not do a huge study, they did find that the 432 hertz actually had more of a a healing effect
Right.
when it came to blood pressure and things like that on the body than this 440 hertz.
Mm.
So very interesting for me because I just was not aware of that shift.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me see if I can find it. But it talks about also, yeah, so the 432 hertz was also it is supposed to be the frequency of creation, the frequency of the universe.
Mhm.
And so that frequency is something that's actually very important to us. So changing it, and if you go on YouTube and you see the difference in 432, like they do all these like sound studies, and you see the difference of the shapes. So the 432 hertz, it has a more defined shape, more
Mm.
beauty with
Mm.
as opposed to the 440 hertz, which is kind of like, it's not quite there. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's such a interesting thing. And I can't remember the quote exactly, but it talks about, Tesla talks about how if you understand how to control these frequencies, then you can control us,
Mhm.
and so the thing is I think a lot of people don't take it very seriously. They
Mhm.
don't take music, what they listen to, very seriously. They think they're just listening to music. They
Mhm.
think they're just looking at entertainment,
Mhm.
and they don't really understand how deep it goes in what kind of state that it continues to keep you in, just like you said. Like you can listen to something and you can't listen to, I don't see how you can. Maybe you can. You can't listen to Michael Jackson, right? And not feel that he was on a certain frequency. Like that's just a given. He was on a certain frequency. Whenever you feel about Michael Jackson, his music was on a certain frequency. And so, but then there's other people who were on a different frequency. You might have liked their music, you might like how it sounds, but it does put you in a certain mood. So you think about, I remember being young, high school, sad for whatever reason, and you go home and you listen because somebody dumped you or whatever. So and you listen to sad, you go and listen to sad music. The shows that you watch because you're feeling a certain way. A lot of people want to binge, Netflix. They have really taken that on, that whole binge watching, because that also is a certain frequency that happens when you start binge watching because of whatever emotion that you're going through. So even when we talk about nutrition and we talk about binging, it's those emotions because you're tapped into a certain frequency. So you go for that food, you go for that song, you go for that type of entertainment that's sustaining whatever kind of like toxicity that's happening to you on a cellular level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What you brought to mind was, they always say you are what you eat. So, your cells, they replicate and they regenerate based on what you are putting in your body. So if you are putting lower vibrational foods, which is dead animals, into the body, acidic foods, you become what you're feeding your body.
Right.
And then that goes into kind of like the law of attraction too, but I want to deep into that.
Yeah, and I did a video a while ago. It was one of my first Wellness Fridays video, and I talked about that. I talked about that those energies that are going on with the way that they kill the animals, for one. And so what going into your body, we don't think about energy does not die. We don't even think like that energy has to go somewhere. It's not, it's going somewhere and it's going into you. So that sadness or that anger, because these animals are not just sad when they die, they're probably angry,
Fearful,
so
that
fear.
fear. We're fearful for society. They call it the animal's revenge, right? Because,
Yeah.
right, whatever that animal was experiencing before it was killed, that energy is, like you said, does not die. It's neither created nor destroyed.
So with music, that engages, and I say music, but even think about when you're watching a TV show. Most TV shows or movies have music attached to them. So they know how to use all of your senses in order to engage you. So they're engaging you with your eyes, they're engaging you with your hearing, your senses. They know how to engage all of those senses. So it engages several systems in the body when you are listening to music. And so studies, I saw this was very interesting. That studies show that music can impact illness, depression, your spending habits, your productivity, and our perception of the world. So a lot of people, they'll listen to certain music when they are studying because they know what kind of impact that may have. We know binaural beats. We have seen studies on binaural beats and what that can do for you and your brain waves. So, but some research has also suggested it can increase aggressive thoughts or encourage crime. So when we ask why our music has gotten worse, there it is, because what is it increasing within you? So they put the words they put certain words in the music, but then also the frequencies in the the melodies that they're playing along with that music to increase whatever action that they
Mhm.
want you to engage in.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
so, it's all intertwined.
yeah.
So when you said you are, you know, I guess you said like you're intentional, you're deliberate in what you listen to,
Mhm.
as am I. So, but why? People who are not intentional with it, what would you tell them? Do you tell your clients? Do you tell your clients to be intentional with like what they listen to and what they engage in?
Absolutely, I do. Because with my clients, in most cases, they are detoxing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important. I use the term awareness all the time, that you are aware of the toxins that you're taking in, not only from, what you're eating, but again, what you're listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're listening to, the things that you mentioned, can drive you to do certain things, but also excessive eating or eating foods that is going to cause your body to be distressed. But that you're listening to this certain music and it's like, oh, everything is connected.
Right.
Your mind is on something that then drives you to turn on certain music that then drives you to, in some cases, emotionally eat,
Mm-hmm.
which may cause you to make a phone call to someone that you don't need to make a phone call to.
Right.
It's all relative. Like, pay attention as you're going down the rabbit hole. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's
That,
very true.
you know, that vibration. So everything is connected. We're all one. We're all the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are paying attention to, well, why am I listening to a song that's calling me a bitch and a whore, right? Why do I like that song?
Right.
Why what is it in me? No judgment. And let me just say this to everybody that's listening. I'm not judging what you listen to, but just pay attention to why you like certain type of
Yeah.
music. Does it make you feel empowered to be called a bitch? It could, but in some cases, it's to really suppress us, especially as Black women, and to control us, which is,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. He said everything emits energy. Those animals' energy is transduced. Yes, very true. Peace to Chef. Thank you for coming through. Always good to see you, brother. And he said we even have to be more careful as Black people. You melanin is much more conductive than pheomelanin. Yes, that
Ooh.
is. Yeah, you going deep there.
Yeah, I'm like, ooh, let me write that down.
Yes. And that's very true. So they have done studies on, the black person and I think even Dr. Africa talks about how drugs, even like the drugs and how we are more sensitive to drugs and things like that, into the chemicals. So also that corresponds with, I'm not gonna get too deep because that ain't my field.
Yeah.
But it is also, I know Tracy, well, he just do it, he does study that in the whole idea of us being conductive because of the melanin. So
Mm.
that being said, the chemicals being more would be more sensitive to chemicals, period. That is also going to mean that most likely we are more sensitive to, it was something I was looking at earlier, to the whole idea of, let's see, what was it, where was it, da, 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 da. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, so melanin has the ability to transduce electrical energy
Mm.
So, and even when you think about why they even want those grams of melanin and things like that, and what they are doing with that. So, it's a lot of things that are happening there. And so I'm not going to get too deep in that, but I did want to share this article about the frequencies and the hertz. So I'm going to put this in the description later because it's a great read. Let's see here. I think I shared it. Okay, so let's look. It's kind of small, y'all. Let's see if I can get it bigger. Okay, that's a little bigger. All right, so let me see where to start because this whole article was really good. But so the span of sound that a person hears is termed frequency range. The unit of measurement hertz. So there is considerable variation between individuals. The hearing range is commonly accepted to be 20 to 20,000 hertz. So to place that in perspective, the low frequency of a tuba is 29 hertz and of a bass 27 hertz. Below 20 hertz is called infrasound. Those sounds are imperceptible to the human ear, but the body hears it, although one may not be aware of the bombardment.
Mm.
So these sounds might occur from the whir of motors, water pumps, construction site noise, equipment room near your residence, or close by traffic. So they said they slowed down okay, so this is Walt Disney and his team of cartoonists. They slowed down a 60 cycle tone in a short cartoon to 12 hertz. They became sick for days afterward. A good example of extreme low frequencies that might be encountered is the church pipe organ. The church pipe organ. Okay. It can cause sensation of sorrow, coldness, anxiety, and even shivers down the spine. I just need that to sit there for a moment.
Right.
Okay, so sounds around 19 hertz matches the resonant frequency of the human eyeball, with reports of apparitions as detailed by the Coventry Telegraph newspaper. The most dangerous frequency is at the median alpha rhythm frequencies of the brain, so that's 7 hertz. This is also the resident frequency of the body's organ. At high volumes, infrasound can directly affect the human central nervous system, causing disorientation, anxiety, panic, bowel spasms, nausea, vomiting, and eventually organ rupture, even death from prolonged exposure. So I'm going to stop there.
Wow.
But I thought that was so interesting. Just based on those are sounds that you can't even hear. So take what you will from that.
Yeah.
And understand how these sounds can affect you. So, we know that when we're in different groups, so church being one, it doesn't have to be just be church, but it can be other places where you're in a group and, you're all feeling that same emotion. And that has to do with that frequency. But then also, what can they do with that? It clearly says it can make people sick and you don't even know what's making you sick. So you're going to the doctor and you're trying to figure out what's making you sick. And you don't know that it could be the frequency. So, a lot of things come to mind when I think about what they could be doing with that. A lot of things come to mind.
Absolutely.
So he says melanin gives and receives electrons much more freely, thus being more sensitive to the electromagnetic spectrum. Thus microwaves, okay, phones, computers, etc. Yes. Very interesting, very interesting. So Um, okay, so with that infrasound, there's something that what are I can't remember where I read this, but it said when you listen to a sound with a certain frequency, your brain waves will synchronize with that frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something in neuroscience, it's called Hebb's law. And it's a principle of neuroscience, and it says that nerve cells that fire together wire together. Hebb's cradle demonstrates that if you repeatedly activate the same nerve cells, then each time they turn on, it will be easier for them to fire in unison again. Eventually, those neurons will develop a long-term relationship. In other words, becoming an automatic, unconscious habit.
Yeah.
So, with that, um, is that something? Now I know, and when we talk about this, we're talking about it holistically. So these things can also happen through experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It
Absolutely.
can happen through continuously having the same emotions. But it also happened through those frequencies, those same vibratory movements around you that are in
Mm-hmm.
your environment. So Dr. Joe Dispenza, he says in his book, your habitat becomes your habit.
Yeah.
So on a cellular level, when it comes to our DNA, um, are you familiar with how DNA frequencies can be transmuted over generations or over time?
Yes. So, we have all of our ancestors' DNA, first of all. And so when we think of the traumas that our ancestors have experienced over time, we're carrying that.
Mm-hmm.
We are the legacy of our ancestors. So yes, we absolutely are carrying the experiences not knowingly, but
Right.
our responses to some life situations, we may see that, and we may not have actually experienced a direct traumatic experience. So yeah,
Mm.
I do believe that we carry our ancestors' trauma.
Yeah, yeah. So with our DNA, I was looking at something and it was talking about the body remembers.
Mhm.
So just like our DNA or our genes are passed down,
Mhm.
and it's just kind of like certain features. Like I know with me and a lot of people in my family, they have my grandmother's nose.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And so obviously she got it from somewhere, right? She got her nose from
Mhm.
somewhere. And then even my our kids
Mhm.
have her nose. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like that same thing we're talking about. We're talking about how uh it can be translated or transmitted. So
Mhm.
it's the same with our cells. The cells have its own memories, and we often talk about that, especially in our in the Black community with epigenetics. And I think a lot of times we only think about these things negatively.
Mhm.
We don't under we in because we have a negative relationship with this country. We for the most part we have a
Mhm.
negative relationship. So when we talk about epigenetics, it's usually talking
Mhm.
about negatively.
Sure.
But I think we can try to change in some cases the paradigm of it, because just like trauma has been passed down, we can
Mhm.
also access past knowledge from our ancestors,
Mhm.
and within ourselves, that is within us, that knowledge that we do need. um
Mhm.
we have to just remember it. We have to,
Yeah.
and we have to understand how to cut it on and to how to access it. And so
Yeah.
you know in I talked about this before in one of the past lives, but we talked about mimetic ideation. We talked about memes. And this is from Island of the Memes by Dr. Wade Nobles. And he said, through indoctrination, mimetic information is shrouded with the intentionality of grasping consciously or unconsciously of subjector acquiring certain information, ideas, values, beliefs, and behaviors that are valuable for future life performance in the promotion of one's welfare and well-being. So I'm not sure if I have the actual definition of meme. Let's see. I do have the book here though, so I'll read out the book. But I find it, it's quite interesting, because he talks about this in the senses and things like that, and how important that is. But so I read this before. I'm gonna read it again though. He says that as a unit of cultural inheritance that is naturally selected. Is that what I wanted to read? Let's see. Okay, so memes use their possessors' communication and imitation skills in order to replicate themselves and by influencing the world in which their possessor dwells, increase their chances of survival. It can, however, be argued that memes are more than just units of information residing in the brain. Memes could also be thought of as contagious, symbiotic, reproductive sensoria information structures and patterns, including all of the senses that influence human knowing and awareness. So at its best, it's something that you're going to pass on what's best for yourself, your community. You're transmitting pieces of information that are actually going to help you for generations to come. That's at its best, but at its worst, then it's going to actually be what he calls a mimetic infection. And that mimetic infection is that sensoria information structure, and he says it's any contagious alien information pattern that replicates by symbiotically infecting human minds and altering behavior, and thereby causing the alien meme to propagate the pattern. So very important when we talk about these frequencies, especially in our entertainment and our music, because in actuality, that is what I would consider a mimetic infection. And so let's see. So let's see. Okay, so there was something I was listening to, and it talked about it takes energy to create cancer, and it takes energy to create illness. So I want to talk about that for a moment, and how the energy and the frequencies that we are absorbing, and not just absorbing, but the energy that it takes to create these things, because we only think about those things being created because maybe it's in our DNA or it's in our genes, But how can those energies, is it just through food, or is it through the whole idea of it starting in the mind, and those things that dis-ease starting in the mind? What is creating these illnesses?
Yeah, there are clinical studies that show that holding negative emotions, for example, bitterness, actually could lead to cancer. And I like to go a little bit deeper in regards to the connection with source. If there is if you're lacking connection, there's a disruption with source. I believe that impacts the mind, and then I believe that that impacts the physical body.
Mm.
I believe in mind, body, spirit connection.
Right.
So when you're disconnected from source, then you're not receiving the instructions in order to know how to care for your temple properly. In some cases, you enter into situations possibly that you are not able to recover from, causing trauma. Then that may impact again the decisions that you're making about your overall health and wellness, and it shows up in the physical body.
Mm. Mm. So when you say able to when you're not connected to source, you're not able
Mhm.
to get those instructions.
Mhm.
What how is connecting to source for the people who need to know, like how is that able to give you the instructions that you need?
Mhm. So, of course, this is my belief. It's not,
Mhm.
but we're all one. We're all a universe. We're all energy,
Mhm.
and there's a spiritual realm, which I do believe in, that is at just a higher level of vibration overall being. So you can say that's where our souls go when we leave the physical realm, however way you want to picture that. But that's vibrating at a high level
Mm.
once that soul transitions and goes to the next level.
Right.
So, knowing and understanding that, and believing, if you believe that there is a creator, a source vibrating at a higher level, then um, having a connection is how you get, I like to say, sneak previews of coming attractions.
Mm.
But in order to be able to do that efficiently and effectively, it's important to vibrate at a higher level to even
Right.
be able to hear or to receive in a way that you are knowingly or aware, which is empowering. Let me
Yeah.
just put it that way. But when we walk around conditioned or whatever have you, there's a disconnect. There's a belief that source is like a Santa Claus, not
Mhm.
really there. Then we tend to vibrate lower. And then we are making decisions based on what we see, which what we see is an illusion here in this
Mhm.
physical realm. Now we're going again down the rabbit hole, impacts our body. You see or hear people say, well, I'm going to die anyway, so I'm going to be reckless with my life.
Right. Right.
Again, no judgment, because it's your journey. You get to live how you want to live. But all of that aids in the energy that you talked about in getting sick.
Mhm.
You know, you're putting that energy towards that because then you're creating a toxic body.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, yeah. So, and I hear that a lot because it's that, like, I'm gonna die anyway. And but I think that that is also a part of kind of that collective frequency or collective consciousness, because a lot of people, because they it it's very much so one of those things where when you are in a certain, space,
Mhm.
a certain frequency, you start hearing kind of the same things,
Yeah.
but actually taking away some of those things in order to really hear. There was something I listened to, and I think I mentioned to you about it,
Mhm.
mentioned it to you that language. It said that language was designed to hide feelings.
Yes.
Yeah. So, as
Yes.
beings that are connected, universal beings, us being energy, we actually, our first language is energy. That's
Mm-hmm.
our first language is vibrations. But what happened is language has gotten in the way. I think there was someone who even said that language actually made us dumber because now we don't necessarily know how to connect with nature. We don't know how to connect our ancestors were able to connect with nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that video, and I sent that video to you, but it was talking about like the animals. There are certain animals that are not going to approach other animals because they
Mm-hmm.
already know, and then also they understand that they're not in the same they're not the same frequency, their vibrations. So a lot of us have had that instance where we were in like a great mood, and then someone came in, like they didn't even say a word. I've had this happen to me. They didn't even say a word. And then like instantly their vibration just changed. And I like how he talked about like your waves, like your waves are interacting with other waves. Your energy is interacting with someone else's energy. But
Mm-hmm.
what we get messed up on is that we have been taught to listen to words. And I'm not saying don't listen to words, because if you're not in tune with frequency and vibration,
Mm-hmm.
don't just be saying stuff like, oh, well, so some people just be like, oh, well, spirit told me, or, you see, you rubbed me the wrong way, but you're not,
Yeah.
really in tune. But when you start really understanding, because a person can be speaking to you and saying one thing to you, but when you're really in tune, then you will understand this person is saying one thing, but their vibratory, their vibration, their energy is saying another thing. And so I
Yes.
think children, like I've seen that with children, like babies, you see that with animals,
Yes.
because that's our first language.
Yeah.
And we let if we were really in tune, then we wouldn't have certain relationships, because the vibration would already tell you beforehand, this person is not meant, to be in your life. Like this person is not
Yes.
on your frequency. But we get so bombarded now with words like, oh, they're saying all the right things, but we're not listening to our actual first language, um, which will help us bypass a lot of those things if we learned it. Because I also think it's something you have to learn. I think it's
Absolutely.
um, that,
Absolutely.
especially at this point,
Mm-hmm.
as people, because
Mm-hmm.
we do have language that gets in the kind of gets in the way of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree with you. Absolutely, 100%. I do teach people how to read their own energy. Like,
Mhm.
learn, you have, in order to be able to discern others, you have to know your own. That means that you have to pay attention to, and so this is that sort of that unlearn to relearn. You have to pay attention to what your energy, what your body is telling you.
Mhm.
How do you feel? If you're running around all the time and you're not paying attention to your own energy, then you're going to miss it with someone else's.
Right.
So, stopping and assessing, what is my energy? What is it, low? Is it high? Start there. Why is it low? Why is it high? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Start with the basics. But then also developing yourself to the point of where you're intentionally stopping throughout the day and paying attention to what it is that your energy is picking up.
Mhm.
What are you feeling? We are so busy. We have been conditioned to be so busy that we don't assess ourselves until the end of the day.
Mhm. If then.
If then, and
Right.
the only assessment we have at that point is I'm tired.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right? So it's important for us. That's why it's important. I know you and Tracy just came off of your fast, and you're getting ready to go into another fast, but it's so important to fast. That's the best way. That was the best way for
Mhm.
me to
Yeah.
learn, to unlearn, to relearn how to feel.
Right.
my energy so I could feel, and then language would become secondary.
That's a great point, because if you notice, when you fast for a length of time, especially when it gets up to several days, your senses are heightened. Like you can smell more, you can even hear, like sometimes I'll be like, why am I hearing this bird? It's like your senses,
Because your vibration is high.
your vibration is higher.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have all of those, things, those toxins that are running through your body that are actually keeping you from being in tune with nature, with with the universe, with the energies that are around you.
Absolutely.
Because just like he was saying here, like that electromagnetic field is real. It expands 5 to 8 feet around you. You may not be able to see it, but it's there.
Absolutely.
Very true. Like some people, we talk about the aura, and some people can see aura, some people can smell aura, some people, some people can, they can, feel it. Like there's certain things that people can, when it comes to your aura, or when it comes to that electromagnetic field around you. And so the more in tune that you get with yourself,
Yes.
and that is one of the best ways, just like Dr. Tammy said, is fasting.
That's right.
I remember when I first did now this was in my Christian days. I did a fast, and there were things like happening, and I was just like, what's going on? I couldn't explain what was going on.
Yeah.
And and it was funny, because then it also springboarded some other things that started happening. I was like, you know what? I don't want to eat. I don't want to eat this stuff anymore.
Yes.
When you start taking all of these things away, you start taking away, and then it was just like, okay, I don't want to watch these things. I don't want to watch these reality shows. So you start things. I don't want to listen to this type of music. All these things kind of springboard other things. So when we talk about fasting, like fasting is powerful. It's one of the easiest things. You can go to people, and I'm not gonna say it's easy, because fasting is not necessarily easy. But it's the simplest thing.
Simplest, yeah.
And that we can do, and it's free.
And it's free.
It's free. And it's one of the greatest things that you can connect to the energies around you, so that you can become more aware, and your heighten your vibratory state. And so that is something that I like to talk about, because I think it's very powerful when I keep going back to collective consciousness, because I think we're in the state that we are in because of a collective consciousness. I think a lot of times we don't think about how, because when we talk about frequency, we're all connected. So that frequency of one person, one group of people, is impacting the frequency on us.
Yes.
So, whatever anybody's beliefs are, anybody who knows me on MaatSpeaks, I'm for the Black community. Like, that's who I'm for. So with that being said, I know that we have a certain type of frequency, a certain type of vibratory state. Even when you talk about the U melanin, yes, everyone has melanin, but we have the U melanin. And so with that being said, there are certain things that existed in our collective consciousness as a group of people. And we have to even understand, because he talked about it in Island of the Memes as well, about the whole idea is we got to lose the thought that we accepted slavery. Like, we didn't accept it, and that's a collective consciousness right now, because how they say, oh, well, I'm not my ancestors, which I feel like is so disrespectful. Is that's because we have this now collective consciousness that we accepted it, but we did not accept it. We were prisoners. Those. And when you start in words, let's talk about that, because words are very powerful.
Yes.
Talking about that. So the frequency that exists within words. Let's talk about that because Professor Kappa, he says that it's hard to tell the truth in English, and so and so I love I love that. That's one of my favorite things he
I
said.
love that.
So, but and we like English is a bastardized language and all the different
Mhm,
stuff. But
mhm,
that's what we have. That's what we're speaking. That's what we're
mhm,
doing. All right.
mhm,
Now I do know, like, we teach our kids Swahili, and it does have a certain vibratory. Like when you speak those words, it
mhm,
does have a vibrate. It's just like hearing drums,
mhm,
African drums, hearing
mhm,
certain
mhm,
music that belongs in our like cultural
mhm.
um our what makes up us culturally. It has a certain vibration.
Yeah,
So, but I do want to talk about language and the frequency of language and how to use it properly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, for me, I always talk about words are powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that we will say. There are words that we would say, or phrases, or expressions, not thinking because we were conditioned. We heard, friends say it, family say it, and then, things like "you make me sick."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, we don't want to just carelessly use words, or "I hate you," words that can um, bring back, uh, negative, that's going to impact our cells, impact
Right.
us at a cellular level without knowing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or even when, when I used to work in corporate America, and, you call in sick and you're not sick, and then you start getting sick,
Yeah.
right? Power in words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, words do have vibration. I remember one time, I said hello to a brother, and he was like, "Do you know what hello means?" And I was
Oh yeah. Yeah.
like, so yeah, so being aware that yes, words have power, they have vibration, and being intentional in the words that you put out into the universe, because they do impact you and they do impact others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And and that's why I have issues. Don't no disrespect for anybody's belief system, but even saying being born a sinner, right? So if you
Mm,
think that you've been born a sinner, if you think that you're a flawed human being from
mm,
conception, then that is what you're going to believe about yourself
mhm,
and how you interact with the world. And so, as people, melanated people, as people coming from African ancestry, if we believe certain things that they have given us as a people, and that's a hard thing to overcome. It's not that easiest thing to overcome. That's why it's so important how we teach the youth that are coming up. Because we were taught one way, so it's very
mhm.
important
Oh,
that we start re strategizing how we're teaching the young ones that are coming up so that they
mhm,
have uh, a different mindset than what was kind of like pushed upon us. And so, with that being said, with like the frequencies uh, that we are like, how do we come back? Because sometimes, and I'm not a person. I don't like being what's the word a fear monger. I don't
mm.
like putting people in fear
Yeah, yeah.
because
Mm,
I
mm,
don't like I don't I don't like having people will try to put you in fear with things you can't control. There's certain things
mhm,
I can't control. I can't control what I really can't control what the government does, right?
mhm,
Um, but there are certain things that I can control. I can control my sphere of influence. I can control my universe. I can control what happens within me
yes.
and around me. So I don't like to do the fear mongering, but there are certain times, especially, I can kind of tell when my vibratory state is changing because I'll be seeing things on social media and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like it'll start kind of putting that fear in you. But when you listen to things with certain frequencies and you know that they're doing these things, what do you suggest that people do so that they can constantly stay in that high vibratories? Like, so what do you tell your clients who are trying to transition to a holistic lifestyle when it comes to staying in that kind of high vibratory state?
Yeah, I'm big on meditation. I'm
Mhm.
big on connecting to source. I am big on like binaural beats. You know, I sent you
Yeah.
the guy with the drums,
Hmm.
and more or less creating a spiritual practice is what I like
Right.
to say. Overall, you have to create a spiritual practice
Mhm.
in order to keep your vibration high. We are in this physical realm. We're in it, we're not of it. That's what
Mhm.
I believe. And in order to stay at a level where you can overstand what's happening, the only way is by connecting to source, and actually being consistent in your spiritual practice, so that you, and not that we're going to be perfect, because vibration, you know, we're constantly moving, not going to be perfect, but at least you again are aware.
Mhm.
I found myself personally having to intentionally lower my vibration in
Mm.
some cases to be able to communicate with certain people,
Mm.
to be able to bring them higher, if that makes sense.
Right. Right.
And but I'm aware, I'm intentionally doing that in order to help them, because otherwise me talking to them like I'm talking to you and Tracy,
Mhm.
they're not going to understand what I'm talking about.
Mm. Mhm.
Me staying up, say for example, in my sanctuary, in my home, and not going out into some places that are lower level vibration, people will never find me. So,
Mm.
as a holistic doctor, I am consciously like elevating and lowering and elevating and lowering, just so that I can get our people and be able to teach them how to do a lot of the things that we talk about, and give them the information that we talk about. So
Mm.
that's a little exhausting, but you know,
Yeah. I
but
could I could see that being exhausting.
it
I get it. I mean, I think we all do that. At
Mhm.
but when you're working with people as regular as you working with people, I know
Mhm.
that that can be extremely exhausting. So
Yeah,
you have to take time. They say like people who are healers. You have to constantly be working on yourself. Uh,
absolutely.
you
And
know.
you got to get out of the country. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe as healers, you
Mm-hmm.
have got to get out of the country at some point in order to be able to restore yourselves.
Mm, that's a great point. Great point. So some of the low vibratory things that we
Mhm.
are engaged in that is affecting our frequency. What are some things that like we're constantly engaged in? And then what are some things that you see that your clients have trouble with as far as like low vibratory foods or low frequency foods, low frequency things that they tend to do?
Yeah. So I think so let me give you an example really quickly in regards to us. You know, we cycle, we work out.
Mhm.
You know, those aren't high vibrational areas, right? But we would have never met. So like
Right.
going places to exercise, you know, going to, you know, things like that. Um, that's what I kind of consider like lower vibrational type places, but
Mhm.
you know, to benefit and to be able to network and meet other people. That's how we find each other. But with my clients, the struggle generally is with food. That's what attracts them to me, because unfortunately, they know me more so as a weight loss type place,
Yeah, yeah.
that's just one of the benefits of what I do. So it's the struggle with food, struggle in relationships,
Mm.
because when one partner begins to ascend,
Mm-hmm.
starts detoxing, which is what I suggest in order for people to begin to elevate, of course, fasting. The other partner may not be. And then, okay, what do you do in those situations?
Mm.
So, food and relationships, I think, are
Yeah.
big.
That, yeah, that's a
To get into
that's
sex, but
that's
sex
a
is
one.
definitely something that is supposed to be high vibration,
Yeah, but
but
it's yeah.
our people lack knowledge, and it is unfortunately regarded as a low vibrational act. And
Hmm.
it's not, it's a creativity act, it's a high vibrational act. So
Right.
that's another thing, though.
Yeah, that is. Okay, so yeah, like so I think that when it comes down to it, because all of these things are connected,
Mhm.
obviously.
Yes.
We are we're eating poorly because we're engaging in poor activities. And then we are attracting low vibratory people to us, and so the kind of the cycle continues. And you know, when people are, when you are in relationships and that other person is ascending, I'm eternally grateful that when we both started on our journey, that we kind of started at the same rate, because I just can only imagine. I
It's
probably would have, if I wasn't on board, I probably would have been the terrorist. But yeah, so I think that when it really comes down to it, being mindful is one thing. Like I said, I like when he said mindful, but we are mindful matter. So,
yes.
there are things in the universe, in our universe,
Mhm.
that don't have minds, right? They don't have a consciousness, like,
Mhm.
the door, so it doesn't, but we have that consciousness, we have that mind in order to actually change matter, to influence matter. So if we can get that as a group of people, if we could get that, if we could really understand that, then that would change so much in our world. And I'm not saying I have it down packed, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't even say I
Yeah.
have it down packed.
I
I'm
don't
still
either.
working on, really understanding my power.
Yeah.
But I think one of the first things that we can do is really understand that we do have power,
Yes.
and that we can influence not only ourselves, but the next generation and the next generation, and so on, which is extremely important, to me, that we are influence generations that come after us, because just like our DNA goes from generation to generation, you know
Mhm.
that means that in essence, maybe not your consciousness, but the consciousness or the mind that you have now is coming back, but parts and pieces of you are going to continue to come back, for generations to come. So
Mhm.
I think that's very important. So meditation, um, eating, fasting, those are all things that we need to be doing on a regular basis. And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would implore you, if you want to, anyone who's listening, and who's going to listen to the replay, I would really implore you to, if you want to start off with something simple. I'm not gonna say it's not easy. Like fasting at any level, even
Mhm.
intermittent fasting when you first begin,
It's not easy.
it's not super simple, super easy,
Yeah.
but oh, peace, Andy.
Awesome. And
um but yeah, like it's super, it's not super easy, but I would say that, especially because with your OMAD challenge, is there going to be a group, or how is that going to work?
Yes, so it is a group. Actually, we're meeting tomorrow night. That's when I'm going to roll out everything
Okay.
and give the details and the importance and the science of
Mm-hmm.
1 meal a day, of OMAD 1 meal a day.
Okay.
Um, because, like you said, it's not easy detoxing, but it's something about having the energy of a group that, and
Mm-hmm.
especially having a coach that will hold you accountable, because
Yeah.
I know that you do your classes as well. It's something about that energy,
Mm-hmm.
we're on the same page, we have similar goals that helps people to accomplish that, and more importantly be able to explain what's happening, because as you and Tracy know, you start seeing things and things start happening, and in some cases that can scare people because
Yeah.
they don't know and understand what is happening, whether it's what they're releasing physically or mentally or spiritually.
Yeah.
So being a part and being held accountable, I think, is huge. And when you talked about the foods, those high vibrational foods are those foods that have come from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's our greens, it's our fruits. Every meal should have something with life. If you
Yeah.
don't have something live with every meal, what are you doing? You are alive. We are live. We are organic. We're just like these trees and the grass and the
Mm-hmm.
sky. We're organic. So to put in cooked food or dead food every day as
Mm-hmm.
the majority of how we uh, what we input our bodies for them to function is what causes our vibration to be low.
Yeah.
Those greens and those veggies cause our vibration to be high. It's not about being perfect, it's
Mm-hmm.
about the intention.
Yes. Yes. Very true. And you get to a point where that's what you crave. you you're
Yeah,
gonna crave those high vibrational foods.
yeah,
And even
yeah.
kind of the thought of uh eating like other things are gonna be like, I don't, I wanna eat. Like I get excited to eat my fruit every day. Like,
Yeah, like I want to feel good. I
yeah.
don't want to feel tired. I want to
Hmm.
feel good. And the only way that you really know how good you're going to feel is by doing a fast.
Yeah.
Because that's when you know your true energy, like, your true energy state is through fasting.
Yeah, that's very true. It's
Mhm.
gonna it'll bring up a lot of things.
Mhm.
Um, I'm starting mine tomorrow, and I've been mentally preparing for it. But I
Mhm.
don't look at it negatively. I look at it as something that I'm getting to do. I'm releasing
Yeah.
toxins.
Yes.
I'm regenerating my
Yes.
cells.
Yes.
That excites me.
So one of the biggest things that I hear people say, and people listening, maybe thinking the same thing, who may have never detoxed, they'll say, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go. You want me to go 21 days without meat, without my favorite foods?" And I have to tell them that's addiction. There
Mhm.
are 365 days in the year. You
Right.
cannot take 21 days just to get your body in alignment, to give your digestive system a rest, to
Mhm.
heal, to reverse some of the conditions that may be, some of the diseases or disorders that may be coming upon you if you haven't been diagnosed. Like, you're not worth that.
Exactly.
Got to think about it. We're slaves to these taste buds.
Oh yeah.
That's what get us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean we've we're talking about it, but we've been through it. I
Mhm.
definitely definitely
Mhm.
I was a classic emotional eater.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, so it is something, but once you get used to it, you get into the habit of doing it, then it's it really is life changing. I would
Mhm.
say that it's really life changing. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I would really suggest that. And how do people sign up? Do they go to your Instagram or your website?
Oh, they can go to the website. And they can contact me anywhere, and I can send them a link actually. So, but they can go to the website for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So
Mhm.
go to the you can go to her website.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget to follow her on Instagram as
And
well.
if they cannot make it tomorrow night, it will be recorded because we actually officially start May 1st, which is Sunday. It will be recorded, and I would be able to send them the recording.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right. So I would suggest going there and just get started with your detox. Summer is right around the corner, so
Woo!
I'll get ready for summer. I am
Yeah.
going to be on somebody's beach, so
Yes. Yes.
so I am planning my exit and so yeah to the beach and yeah so we'll talk
Grounding. Grounding.
grounding. Yes, I'm an earth
Yes.
sign, so I
Yes.
have to go out
Ah,
into nature
yes.
very often or I get
Me
yeah.
too. That's why I moved from Chicago
Mhm.
to Georgia.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I have to be outside.
hmm Yeah. So, and the frequency of nature. So that's what we're
Mhm.
talking about today, everyone. Those frequencies, our our computers, our cell phones, all of those things are they're good tools that we need to stay connected, run our businesses, whatever.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they also are emitting certain frequencies to you at the same time as well. So it's
Yeah.
very important that you get in tune to the natural frequencies and use your phones appropriately. Use your
Yes.
computers and all these things appropriately. Go onto, YouTube and listen to binaural beats
Yes.
and things like that. Use meditation, look, I have it in shout out, I have meditation on my channel if you want to check that meditation out, short meditation.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll be adding some more meditations. I have some exciting things coming up. So on
Yeah.
my channel as well, everyone, so that we can stay balanced and in harmony with
Yes.
one another and ourselves. So staying in tune for that. But with that being said, I just think that this is a great stopping point.
Okay.
And I thank you all for staying on, listening, and doing what needs to be done and
Yes.
having this conversation. I thank you again, Dr. Tammy Matthews, for coming through and giving us your knowledge as well. And with that being said, I'm going to end this live. Um, Peace, family. I'll see you next time.
Bye bye.